Hello and welcome into the Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of Big Ten Network. Today's guest is former Northwestern basketball player Nate Taphorn. Let's get into it.
Take a look, listen, and enjoy. Look at here.
With the catch, the finish! Oh my goodness! What a catch! Energy,
my goodness.
enthusiasm. It's picked off! It's selfish! Brilliant!
He's still going. Touchdown!
All right, before we get to the interview with Nate Taphorn, a quick word from our sponsor, Northwestern University School of Professional Studies. You can build a solid foundation in the strategic, creative, and analytic skills that are essential for success in the business of sports in the master's program in sports administration at Northwestern University. Find out more at sps.northwestern.edu/sports. Definitely check that out if you're looking to work at a place like Big Ten Network, looking to work in the sports industry. And going to plug that before we get to a Northwestern guy himself, Nate Taphorn, guy who definitely, as he gets into, benefited from going to Northwestern, working those connections, and getting into the real world post-basketball. And he'll get into that and definitely talk a lot more about his career and his side hustle as a broadcaster. Good to get on with Nate Taphorn because definitely seen him around the city and interacted briefly, but finally got a discussion on the books that was probably overdue, so that's my bad. And Nate. Then after Nate, we do have Harold Shelton, as always. Second time in a week with H. And he's on, if you're not familiar, most weeks during Big Ten football and basketball season, pretty much all of them, talk what's going on in the Big Two revenue sports and in the Big Ten. And he's an expert, is in the weeds every day with the numbers, the stats, the trends. He talks about them very masterfully on the podcast. And so we get to him after Nate. First up, though, like I said, it's Nate Taphorn, member of the 2017, quote, First Dance Northwestern Wildcats basketball team, first team to make the NCAA Tournament in Wildcats history, big contributor on that squad, and we'll get right to him. The Take 10 podcast discussion with Nate Taphorn. I'm very pleased to be joined by a former Northwestern basketball player from 2013 to 17. It's Nate Taphorn. Nate, how's it going, man? Good morning. Thanks for jumping on.
Man, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So fill me in. Like I see you running around Chicago, cross paths often enough. What have you been up to, in the 5 years? It's crazy to say that, but the 5 or so years now since leaving the Cats.
It seems shorter than it is, I'd say. I've been popping around quite a bit. Right after Northwestern, I played overseas in Croatia for about a month and a half, and it was something I didn't enjoy doing. It's really, really hard to do. So I wanted to be at home and maybe play in the States. So I came back here. I had some training going on in the summer, and then I used my Northwestern connections, got a private equity gig in the city. I was working as an intern for a company called Vistria, and used one of my private equity connections or Northwestern connections there. And then after that, I got into I sold physical therapy for about 6 months. And then after that, I ran a gym in the city for about 6 months. So it was a lot of fun. And then now is the biggest gig I've had. And I love the industry, love kind of the socialization around it. And I'm selling insurance in Chicago for a company called Hub International.
Yeah, and I want to get into maybe your side gig in a minute because I know you're on the airwaves for the Cats. Yeah. But I want to ask about Croatia because I didn't know you were over there. Everyone loves Croatia as like a vacation spot. You said you didn't enjoy it. Was it at least nice, like views and beaches wise, or were you kind of tucked away?
No, it's beautiful. I was in Zadar, was a city we were based in, so it's a beautiful spot. I mean, everybody talks about going to Yacht Week and stuff like that. Everybody's very good looking. Everybody's pretty active and pretty skinny and everything like that. So it's quite interesting, but completely different place over there other than Chicago right now in the middle of winter. So, but no, I didn't like it because it was a very big change for me. And on top of that, I wasn't it wasn't basketball for me. It was not a lot of guys on the team spoke English, probably one or two. So I had a translator every time our coach spoke, which was, you don't really understand what he's saying. So there was that. There was the promises that never get made under contract. There was, where's my money type of thing. And I was like, this is not the hoops I know. It's hard. And so kudos to all those guys that stick through it. I was like, you know what, I think I want to do something else. So
yeah, so left yacht week for the playpen here in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so take me through how you got this opportunity calling games on WGN. Was it something that kind of came naturally? Is it easy for you to talk ball, or is it an adjustment getting into media?
Yeah, so I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years. So I've been out since 2017. I think I got into it in 2018, 2019. I think 2019. And it was kind of on a whim. I think Dave Ennett, who is a Hall of Famer on the radio for WGM, he does everything under the sun, it seems like. And he's so easy to work with. But he had asked me on a game that Joey Meyer had to step out for. Joey was, I think, still doing some stuff with the Clippers, traveling with his family and kind of spending some time there. And they'd asked me to jump in on one of the games. And one of my first game I ever did on the air actually was not with Dave, but I'm trying to think. I think it was with Andy. My goodness, I can't remember his name. Anyway, so first game on the air was not with Dave, but I kind of got into the gig, and I realized the first game I was doing a whole bunch of prep, but I never used any of the prep. It was, I mean, on the air it's such a different, time space where you can talk. So if you're doing a play-by-play on the TV, or if you're doing a color on the TV, you're having a conversation throughout the whole game. People know what you're talking about, and they can still see the game, and that's kind of how it goes. But on the radio, they can't see anything. So you're looking for any way to describe the game from essentially when Dave isn't talking to when I am. So when you have essentially when the ball goes through the net for one team, they take it out and then they cross half court. That's from when they take it out to when they cross half court. That's about the time I have to talk. And if they kick it out of bounds or they're shooting a free throw or anything like that, that's kind of bonus time. But Dave does a really good job to lay it up for me and kind of ask me questions and keep the conversation rolling too. So I love it.
Yeah, if you're from Chicago, you know Dave's name for sure. And it is something that hits me like when I'm in the car or listening to any sporting event on the radio, just how different it is and how much of a different approach you have to take, and even listening to it to get used to something as opposed to TV. Looking back at your playing days a little bit and in the time since 2017, I feel like I see, at times you and Scotty, Vic, Sanjay, it seems like that group is pretty tight. I've seen, those guys together, seen you with them before. You still keep pretty close with that crew and that class you came up with, and how often are you guys, just hanging out and reminiscing these days?
Yeah, I'd say the person I'm closest with and have been closest with is Sanjay. I mean, one of my best friends for 4 years in college. We lived together for 3 of them, and then we've stayed close ever since. I mean, he's out in Utah, kind of living it up. He's on the Jazz staff. I keep close with Vic. Vic's down in Australia, hooping it up. So we get about 3 hours a day that we have where our time kind of overlaps. I'll catch him in the morning over there, and then he'll catch me at night here. So we're all in group chats together. But I hang out with Gavin a little bit. Gavin Skelly, he's in Chicago. An older guy that I hang out with as Alex Tulio, even though he wasn't on that team, he's been a big support. So there's still some guys in Chicago. I don't see Scotty as much, even though he's in Chicago. He's still on the burbs, and that's like living in a different city. So he's absolutely killing it right now, and I love seeing everybody from Derek, Barrett, Vic, Sanjay, Scotty, Aaron Falzone, Isaiah Brown, even Rapolis is overseas. All those guys are doing really, really well overseas. I love following them.
Yeah, Scotty was actually one of the first guests on this show. Like when I think it was,
really?
Yeah, in the single digits episodes years ago. He was an intern at BTN, so just pulled
Oh,
him.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew him first before any of you guys, I think. Also, going through your bio and everything, I'd forgotten you're from Pekin.
Yeah.
I'm a Central Illinois guy too. I remember playing Pekin in a summer
Where are you
league
from?
game from Champaign. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember playing you guys, I think down in Jacksonville. You were probably on the team. Not for sure. Can't remember faces or anything, but I just remember those dudes setting a lot of screens and there are a lot of motion. And I'm like, this is summer league and we have no plays and you guys are working us out. So just taking that one instance, I'm just projecting this on your whole high school career, but was it a very structured setting that maybe prepped you for college, or am I just projecting too much off my personal experience?
So my dad, I'll give a lot of credit to my pops here. It was a pretty simple offense, and something you might remember is blocker mover. So blocker mover came from Dick Bennett, and Dick Bennett, that's who my dad played for in college. So he played at Green Bay. He played for one year with Tony Bennett, and my dad's job when Tony got on the floor was just pop guys with screens. And so we kind of adopted that a little bit here and there in the summer, and it was just like, just get open. Just you have two guys that screen, two guys that can pop, and then you have two guys that can just cut off the ball, and one guy handle the ball. So it was we used the summer to have fun. We had a lot of football guys, so if there was anything that they wanted to get their anger out on that wasn't on the football field, it was on the basketball floor. So we had a good team though, my sophomore, junior, senior year. It was fun to play.
Yeah, for some reason, I remember that day, I think playing you guys the same day that Landon Donovan scored the goal against Algeria in the World Cup. I don't know why I remember that, but I don't even know if you were there that day because I think you might be a year behind me. But
I wasn't a big soccer fan at that point, so I can't say I was following all that well.
Yeah, I wasn't either at the time. I just remember I think people were like on the phone and reacting between games. But anyway, that's just memories flooding back to me. Not linger too much on high school. Nate, take me through college, building to the NCAA tournament season. Obviously for a senior like yourself, that's like a long climb, right? So like maybe what were some of the unsung moments that in any of the years leading up to it, you reflect on that maybe don't get highlighted when, you watch the BTN documentary or do these type of interviews?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think through the years. Freshman year, I don't think there's anything unsung. I would say I give a lot of credit to those guys that we kind of had a scrambled team. So we had Coach Collins come in. I came in with him, and then Drew was kind of the first recruit that Coach Collins ever got because he was thinking about leaving. And I give a whole bunch of credit to this team. We didn't really have all the puzzle pieces together, but we used everything we had. And we went into Indiana and Wisconsin that year, who was a Final Four team, and beat them both on their home floors. And we were not expected to do that. And so you had guys like Trey Dems, Drew Crawford, Alex Ola, Jashawn Cobb, and Sajay. And then you have guys like me, Cale Abrahamson, Dave Sobolewski. I could go down the line of guys that people don't really recognize anymore. So that was a lot of fun. I think that really got my career started off. But between my freshman and sophomore year, one of the things that a lot of people didn't know, you could see it, but they didn't really know, is Sanjay and I went through a massive change. We both gained, I think, 30 to 40 pounds within a month and a half. It was disgusting and just a kind of a massive change for both of us. And we look back at it, we're like, holy cow, I'm so happy we did that. But during that time, you're eating like everything you could, like I'd be eating right now. I could. It was eating and drinking protein shakes and lifting weights and then you had to do basketball workouts all on top of that for a month and a half straight or 2 months. And credit to our strength staff and our nutritionists and everything like that. That was painful, but it was worth it. So I think that change was huge. Sophomore year, I wouldn't say anything too crazy happened. Junior year, I really thought we had a really good chance. I mean, junior year, you talk about the Michigan game where Trey Dems, who's now working for the Big Ten, takes us to 4 overtimes or whatever it is. So those games were all a lot of fun. But I think we got to my senior year and I was like, I think everybody put their foot down and was like, this is the team. Like, we're not this is we're kind of we're tired of being stepped on. Like this is our year to kind of put our force down and to really take on challenges of what we came here for. So you look at the recruiting staff or recruiting all around Northwestern, and you kind of have this mojo around, why do I want to go there? And not only is it a Big Ten school, not only is it one of the greatest in the world, not only is it, you're playing everybody for under the sun when it comes down to talent wise, but you're also in Chicago, in a tough city where it's a melting pot for kids that go to the other schools. So you're playing on what feels like hostile turf even at home. Kind of playing the games my freshman and sophomore year, you have up in the rafters, you have Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois fans like chanting ILL and all that bull crap. So that was quite interesting. But I mean, that was one reason why main reasons why we all came here. I mean, you can ask that whole team. It was like, we want to make history.
Yeah, eventually did. And I remember kind of that build. It was my first year at the network, and that was the story that year. And I think everyone thought that win at Wisconsin kind of locked it in. And, I remember Collins with a fist pump that game. There was a dunk to seal it. Did you guys think you had it in the bag then?
We got booed out of the arena for probably a good reason. I'd probably do the same if somebody else did that to us. But no, I think I think there was, I'll put it this way. I think there was a certain points in the season where we were like, all right, we're good. And then we'd lose a game like, we gotta pick it up. But I think we did a really good job that year of focusing on the next game, whatever it was, and winning the day. And whether it was in practice or the weight room or, getting guys healthy, it didn't matter what it was. Like, it was just like, hey, we gotta win this day. So I give a lot of credit to those guys and everybody. I think there was a common understanding. We didn't really give a crap who scored on the floor either. We had our main guys that would score, but if Isaiah Brown went off for 24, we were all ecstatic. If Derek went off for 30 like he did in Nebraska, we were ecstatic. If Sanjay had 15 and 15, like we celebrated everybody. We didn't care. If Vic had 0 or Brian had 0, everybody's gonna be talking about it, but we're not. We just cared about who was winning. So
yeah, that team was so balanced. I remember, like you pointed out,
yeah.
A lot of dudes, who'd make plays. And I mentioned the Wisconsin game. I thought it was in the bag then, but then it gets to the Michigan game, and it's like, well, maybe not. This is kind of an important win or must win. Comes down to the final play. You're the inbounds passer. Did you know when that ball left your hand that Derek had a good chance to make something happen, or was it just kind of a prayer?
I haven't talked about this in a while, but looking back at it, try to remember. I mean, that's one of my vivid memories. Up until the point where I threw it, I'm like, I don't really know. It felt really good. We practiced it maybe once or twice in preseason or something like that, but I haven't thrown a ball that far unless I'm just, I thought it was good. I mean, I'm not throwing a ball to throw it back. So I thought it was really good. I had a target, and luckily, I mean, I'm sitting here, so I hit it. So, but back to the Wisconsin question, I think that the Michigan game certainly sealed it. But we were kind of licking our chops for the next game at Purdue, and then going to DC, playing guys like Maryland and DC. So I think we saw every game as an added bonus after the Michigan game. It was like, we don't need to be a 7 or 8 seed. We can try to be a 6 or a 5. So
yeah, you guys spoiled the party in DC. I remember. I think it was a Friday night. Maryland fans packed that place and went out sad.
I have a few stories from my parents. My parents went to about every game besides 4 or 5, and they have a few stories about Maryland fans that game. So,
how soon did the Grant Hill comps start rolling in after that pass? I mean,
That not really all that often. I mean, so he actually did the next game.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I'm at one of the coolest moments at Northwestern that didn't involve a basketball game was, I guess it kind of did, but not really. But one of the coolest things was we had walkthrough, and the game was they put the game on CBS. It was a Big Ten, essentially a Big Ten title game for them. One where we could take away their share of the Big Ten title. And essentially the last game at Northwestern at the old Welsh Ryan. So you have you have the fire marshals probably screaming at everybody, yelling, because this place is absolutely packed. But first, I walked in the walkthrough that day, and there's cameras all around, and people are doing media. And then I walk over, and we're done doing shoot around, and this guy's sitting there. I'm like, I know exactly who that is. So I walk over to him and I go, "Hey man, Nate Taphorn, I'm a huge golfer." He's like, "Oh, I know exactly who you are." He goes, "Jim Nance, nice to meet you." And I was like, I'm a huge golfer, and I grew up in the Masters. I grew up watching Tiger, obviously. And I go, "Hey, I went to the Masters last year. I have a buddy who plays on tour." He's like, "Oh yeah, Matt." And it's like, yeah. We started talking about these. He goes, "A tradition unlike any other." And I was like, I just stood there. And I was like an outer body experience. I had goosebumps running up and down my body. It was incredible. But going to that night, it was number one, the most packed I've ever seen Welsh Ryan. We had senior night. We did the t-shirts. We did the stepbrother t-shirts with me and Sanjay on them, and everybody was wearing. It was awesome. So that atmosphere was absolutely, bananas.
I thought you were going to say Jim Nance gave you his tie. The
tie. I mean, him and I still. He knows I'm a huge Chiefs fan now, and he gets to do one or two Chiefs games. So I'll text him, say, "Hey, go Chiefs," and maybe he'll shoot me something back. But last night he didn't. I don't think he was rooting for the Chiefs last time. So it's all good.
It's a nice little brush with CBS greatness there, and that leads into my question. I had written down, kind of lumping in the game and the tournament run. Obviously, Northwestern has plenty of celebrities, and being a national story like that, other people kind of hitch their wagon to it. So that's a great example you had there. But any other celebrity interactions or memorable, encounters, anything like that, where you look back and you're like that was wild.
Yeah, I mean, when we went to Salt Lake, everybody and their mom showed up, which was awesome. You don't have that right now, but you have all the Northwestern donors, you have all of our parents, you have everybody all of our friends that we could try to get tickets for. So every game, every player's allotted X amount of tickets. And we were trying to figure out, all right, we want everybody's parents to come, but who is not using their tickets? Like, let us know now so we could split them up. And I just remember filling every seat that we could. And I mean, obviously you have who I like to refer as. So you have Julie Louise-Dreyfus, who I like to refer as Charlie's mom. And that's about it. So you have Brett Hall and Julie Louise-Dreyfus, who are probably the two funniest people on the planet in my mind. Just spending some time with them, and great people. But you have Charlie's mom and Charlie's dad, and that's it. And so they're quite fun to hang around, and probably some A-list celebrities that you want to hang around. But even after the season, we went to the ESPYs to play against Michigan. So you meet Steph Curry, Michael Phelps, Wilbon was there. I mean, I think because of that season, I'm pals with Wilbon and Greenberg and all those guys as well. So there's a laundry list of celebrities and kind of broadcasters and stuff that are people that are just Northwestern people that love going back to that year.
Yeah, I mean, even me, I've ridden the coattails to meet Seth Meyers.
Yeah.
At Indy at the championship game. I met Julia at one of your games. So even I get to bask in it a little bit.
That year was, I'll say this, that year was a different kind of vibe around the locker room too. We were playing in Brooklyn, and we had just beaten Texas, and in walked Seth Meyers, and we were like, where did he come from? Like, we weren't having celebrities walk in our locker room ever. It was one of the coolest things. And then behind him was his like good buddy who was doing all the Sonic commercials, and he still does them. So we were like, how do you? Yeah, he's like, I went to Northwestern too. No way. So it was really cool.
He needs to get some more Sonics in Chicagoland. I feel like there's only one in the whole city, and I love Sonic.
I think it'd be too crowded if there was.
I know. All right, Nate, almost done. I did have a couple more questions to close us out here.
Yeah.
And, love a good headline grab or graphic. So want your opinion. Everyone answers pretty much the same for like the toughest environments in the Big Ten. I've found, like, everyone says Mackey.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know the sneaky tough environments, like 2 or 3 sneaky tough places where it's like, you go in, the crowd's either rowdy or for whatever reason, it's just tough to play in.
Sneaky tough.
I'm putting you on the spot, so I apologize.
No, that's all right. Can I say the old Walsh Ryan?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I'm not going to put ourselves on a pedestal here, but going in, I've got pictures up here, but I'm looking at the old Walsh Ryan, and like I'm talking about, I lived with Max BFL, who played Michigan and Indiana, and I talk with guys. I talk with Robbie Hummel every once in a while. And, like, people hated going in the old Walsh Ryan. It was, it's an old arena. The rims were questionable sometimes. Everybody hated playing with the Under Armour ball. Like, we had some massive advantages, and so it wasn't like people were scared to come play us. It was the fact that they just didn't like playing. It was tough to play us at home, and we made it tough. But by my senior year, we had made it ours. So we love playing there. I miss some of it, but yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the sneakier tough places to play. I think. So you have the Michigan State, Indiana, Purdue has got to be up there for most people if it's not. Maryland, I feel like Maryland used to be. It's not anymore as much as it should be, for as much of a basketball school they are. But sneaky tough is a hard question, I'd say. I think they're all tough. Nebraska's beautiful still. So that's always, they're going to pack the place. They have nothing to do but watch college basketball and college volleyball, college football in the fall.
Yeah, that arena is really nice. I did not know
it is.
Lived with Max Bielfeldt. He, going back again, I didn't mean to bring up any of my high school basketball stories, but he gave me, I think, 37 or 38, my first ever game playing varsity. So Peoria, Notre Dame.
Yeah, nice.
Cooked this pretty good.
It happens that way sometimes.
Especially with D1 guys. All right, wrapping up. You obviously have seen, I'm sure, the Chris Collins on all fours meme.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the story was with that. Do you know? And do you know if he's seen it?
I'm sure he's seen it. If you ask him, I'm sure he's going to say no. I don't know where it came from. It had to be a game my year, because he's not going to be doing that. He'll be doing it for a good reason. That's what my point is. I think it was probably. I'll start with this. We had one of the best bench vibes around, one of the best bench energies, I'd say, in the Big Ten. And to his credit, to our assistant coach's credit, to our team's credit, and to our fans' credit, it got loud enough where you could be doing the craziest stuff on the bench and nobody would have known. And I think somebody caught that and was like, this is weird, and took a photo of it. And we didn't see it as crazy. Anytime on defense, we'd slap the floor, like on the bench. We'd stomping on the floor, slapping the floor. And I think it was kind of cool where if you're on defense, you could feel it. Like you could feel, how loud it was getting on the defensive end, or people slapping the floor in front of our bench and stuff. And so just about every time down the floor on defense, the ref would have to be like, hey, you guys got to get off the floor. You guys got to sit down, because we were just annoying the crap out of people. So I don't know where it came from, but I think that was his doing, or like his try to get everybody fired up. And I think it's pretty funny now, but it meant something back then.
Yeah, tight quarters at West Ryan too, like you mentioned. Everything's kind of on top of you there. All right.
Oh yeah.
Gonna send you out in some high praises here. How does one go 47% from three, lead the Big Ten? Is that one of those things where it's like everyone that's going up feels like it's going in? Because I mean, hitting 50% pretty much from three is ridiculous.
I'd say the guys I was up there with, I didn't get as many shots as they did, but the ones I took, I made sure. I mean, between my junior and senior year, I was on the gun probably every day, and I found, and Coach Collins kind of gave me a quest per se, or an agenda, and it was find the 4 or 5 shots that you're going to get within the play, and just drill them. You just have to drill them every day. So I would do one way, then do the other way, and then do backwards and forwards and pick and pop. So I'm making 250 threes, every couple of days, just drilling them after practice. And I think I give a lot of credit to our coaching staff for that. But I tried to put in the work, and it really paid off. So.
All right. Well, if I run into you on any of these pickup courts around the city here, I'm gonna need you on the squad. So.
I'm stepping in for somebody on Monday, so we'll see how it goes.
That's the best part about being a former D1 athlete. I feel like it's just the ability to kind of dust things off and give somebody buckets at any given moment.
Yeah, no injuries, so let's pray for that. That's all I care about.
All right, Nate, getting you out of here. Really appreciate you reflecting, taking some time.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed it. It doesn't, like you said at the top, doesn't seem like that long ago at all, but you blink and it's like 5 years later. So appreciate it.
Yeah. It's flying by, sadly enough. So, well, thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
For sure. All right. Thanks once again to Nate for joining me. Fun to reflect on those days with him. Does not seem that long ago, like you mentioned, that this all went down. But you look up and a few years have gone by, and memories are still fresh though. And that was a fun team, fun group of guys to root for, and glad to hear that they're all still, pretty tight, got the group chats going. And, now that even the arena is different in Northwestern, and Welsh Ryan's all sparkly and clean, that run is still fresh in a lot of fans' minds, and hope to see Northwestern back in the NCAA tournament sooner rather than later. All right. We'll kick it over now to Harold Shelton. Like I ran through at the top of the show, he is our manager of research at the network, but also is a great analyst on this show for Big Ten football and basketball. And we'll break down the Big Ten basketball race and what's going on in this week and the coming week and a half or so with the Big Ten contenders. And we'll talk the entire league and talk about some sneaky teams in the bottom half, and obviously the heavy hitters at the top, especially with a lot of them playing each other in the coming days. So get right to it. It's Take 10 Podcast discussion with Harold Shelton. All right, very pleased to be rejoined by Harold Shelton. Just earlier this week we were chatting, compact window between episodes, but plenty to talk about with Big Ten basketball in full swing. How are you doing on Friday now compared to, I think it was Monday we talked last?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. We're getting ready for a little wrestling in our department. And, we obviously a lot of big games in between the time we talked, a little bit more clarity, got a new leader at the top of the standings. And so even though it's been a few days, like a lot still went on.
Yeah, I know you got a team, staff, and I know they're into the wrestling weeds. But with the big emphasis on it tonight, I know it'll be in the rearview mirror once this comes out, but 1 versus 2 on our network, and Big Ten's always home to number 1, number 2 teams in the country, it seems like. How much have you had to dip your toe into those waters?
I've dipped a little bit. I'd say my team more so than me. Ryan Kelly, Steve Shucker have done a great job of keeping everybody up to speed on the wrestling and, getting you guys digital graphics. And, it's been a process, but like you said, we're getting it ready. Huge meet. So it should be a lot of fun.
You know who my guy is this year? I worked with him in the past, but Shane Sparks, I've been wrangling him all year. And so I'm in the wrestling business now. Still don't know a fraction of anything that, he's saying half the time, but pick up on a few things and it's fun to feed off his energy.
Yeah, he's definitely an energetic guy, and it's cool to see he was doing some basketball sideline reporting. It was a week or two ago. So good to see him getting involved more and more. That energy, it certainly spreads.
Well, I found out, I had him on this show a couple of years ago, and I found out like Sparks isn't even his real name.
Really?
So he's got just like a average Joe last name. I can't remember what it is, but it's a great TV name. Good for, I think he told me that some like radio director at like one of his first jobs just like assigned him Sparks, and that was it. It stuck. It was literally like off Spider-Man when you have the news director who just, yells at Peter Parker and basically bosses him around.
Oh, wow. Who knew? Shout out to him, though. I mean, clearly the name works.
Yeah. And you mentioned Shane is did the basketball game last week, but he's like, just talking to him, he knows all sports. Like, I think he's a big Atlanta Braves fan, so he was really locked into the World Series, and he'll just like talk about the past weekend's NFL games for like 20 minutes if you get him going on it. So
that's awesome. I think it's important to be well versed so you can just kind of slide in anywhere, be a utility guy, and I hope we see more of him because he's a high energy guy, and I think those guys are a lot of fun to listen to.
If there were still water cooler discussions at the office with all of us around, that'd be somebody you can run into.
He'd be holding court for sure.
Exactly. All right, let's get into this episode. Had Nate Taphorn on this morning. Former Northwestern guy, obviously was on the best team in Northwestern history. We talked about it plenty with him. So I'm sure your memories will align with some of what we talked about. But when I say Nate Taphorn, what jumps to mind?
Shooter, definite shooter and consistent. I remember he was a guy, he'd come in, he'd hit a couple threes a game. I'd say like his senior year, he was pretty much automatic from deep, shot like 47%. And like you said, he was on the best team in Northwestern history. So it was cool to see him, getting some run against the Gonzaga and Vanderbilt, hit a couple big threes in that Gonzaga game. And so, shout out to Nate Taphorn. Shout out to that Wildcats team from First Dance. I thought they were going to pull off another upset earlier this week too, but just couldn't quite keep that going. But we'll get in that in a bit.
Yeah, up 7 on Michigan. But back talking about Nate's teams, he kind of drove the point home. I assumed it, but it seemed like those guys, took it personal and really wanted to make a statement because I think they were getting sick of being pushed around the first few years. And you kind of knew that team was knocking on the door, right? But when they were finally able to, make the tournament and slay some of those dragons, right? Like beating Michigan and the home finale, or no, it wasn't the home finale. It was the second to last home game, and beating Wisconsin. We talked about, you could just tell that talking to him that they took a lot of pride in kind of rising up and being the hunter instead of the hunted.
Yeah, and not only that, like obviously we remember the Michigan game with the Derek Pardon layup and all of that, but that team also went to the semis of the Big Ten tournament. Like they pretty much controlled the game against Maryland in the quarterfinals in DC, pretty much took that whole crowd out of the game, played really well. And, that was the first time we had seen the Cats get that far. And so, that kind of solidified their place. And then it was cool to see them kind of take it from there and, win a game in the tournament and really give the number 1 seed all they could handle.
Yeah, Gonzaga went to the title game that year, and there's a bad call, right, in that game. Was it the goaltend? Mm-hmm. I just remember there being a bad call, and Northwestern fans are rightfully upset.
Yeah, I know, because they were down pretty big, and they had like a furious comeback. If they had another minute or two, they might have been able to get over the top. But yeah, wound up losing it close late, lost by 6. I want to say it was a 1 possession game with a minute left or so. And, obviously he hit a couple threes in that game. Brian McIntosh, Vic Law played really well. And it was a shame to see that story end.
I saw Vic Law. I think he was in Lakers Summer League this past year. So, there were pros on that team. Some guys still playing too. So, not a surprise that they were able to put a team together and we'll talk about current Northwestern a little bit because they are intriguing and it plays into some Michigan points I wanted to get to. But our last episode we recorded on Monday, so we didn't have anything beyond just surface level Michigan State, Illinois talk. But let's reflect on it. We were tweeting back and forth, and you would share a stat that I found sort of surprising, but looking back on what they've done the last few years, you kind of realize the body of work that Illinois has put together. The stat was, I believe, they are 7-1 in their last 8 games against top 10 teams, 7-2 over the last 2 years in total. And that includes your Spartans, the latest victim on Tuesday night. Crazy game. But I don't know if you have any immediate takeaways from that. And then maybe the larger body of work that we talked about with Illinois, really having some eyebrow raising success against top 10 teams.
In terms of the game itself, I'll look at it from both sides. For Illinois, I thought it was very important to get the game like that when you're losing 2 of your arguably 3 or 4 best players, with Kofi out and Curbelo out. Trent Frazier did what he had to do. Like, he was a guy who's been in games like this. He's a senior. He rose to the moment. He led them. And I know he went cold later in the game, but they built a big enough lead where all the stuff he did early to get him that lead was enough to hold on. I thought Plummer played really well and shot the ball well. I thought Omar Payne was a big key inside. It wasn't until Michigan State went small that they got back in that game, but I thought they did really, really well in pick and roll. They picked Michigan State apart doing that. And I think on the Michigan State side, it was a chance for you to stay in front, to put a road win at Champaign on top of a road win in Madison, and kind of have those 2 games in hand and still be up at the top of the standings by themselves. And it was a missed opportunity. I mean, if they would have, played harder earlier, I thought they could have, potentially won that game. It definitely looked like Illinois was holding on for dear life there at the end, and Michigan State was doing just enough to climb back in it. But I give Illinois a lot of credit defensively. They pretty much took all of the guards out of the game. I think Michigan State finished 5 for 30 from the floor from their guards. It was mostly Marcus Bingham, Malik Hall, Joey Hauser that led the way. So Illinois' guards completely won that game.
Yeah, Michigan State did not play well, I don't think, except for the last 5 minutes when they kind of figured it out and made that run. And for Illinois, I think it makes up for just kind of a head-scratching game against Maryland. Kofi was out, but the effort wasn't there. I think they did play with a lot of effort Tuesday night, and that's what got them off to a fast start and kind of fed off the crowd a little bit. And it just seems like with Illinois this season, it's one of those things where every game day I'm kind of opening Twitter and I'm like, all right, what now? Right? Like, who's going to be out with COVID? Or there's been a lot of, I don't know if it's flu or what, but other sicknesses that have kept guys out or limited them. There's been 2 obviously major concussion issues with Curbelo, out for a really extended time, and Kofi now out for the last 2 games. We'll see if he gets back Saturday against Northwestern. But it's just one of those seasons where, more than anything I can remember, things are just not falling into place right. So on one hand, you look at them, coming in as a top 10-ish team all preseason, and you look at maybe an underwhelming non-conference for them, but look at them 7-2 in the Big Ten, despite, a couple of letdowns. I think you got to be happy with where they are. That win over Michigan State was important because they did not have a marquee win yet. And just especially with, like I said, all the unexpected variables that have popped up this season, it's, I think, more impressive than not that they are sitting where they are right now. And, if they can get a fully healthy lineup for more than one game, because really the only one was Cincinnati, and we learned now that Curbelo wasn't right for that one, and the wheels fell off. And then Purdue, where Kofi played, 15, 20 minutes because of foul trouble. We'll see what they're like at full strength. And it feels like if it comes together, it can at least come together at the right time if all those issues are in the past.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like Illinois and Purdue, when whole, are the 2 best teams, definitely the most talented. And we saw that when they played each other on MLK Day, and, had that crazy game and guys were just making plays all over the place. But to your point, I think Illinois had 3 games where they were fully whole. I believe they were whole against K-State as well in that same tournament with Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But like you said, they've played 19 games and they've had their full lineup for 3. They've used 9 different starting lineups in 19 games. And so it's hard to get that continuity. especially if you think like, okay, now Curbelo's back, cool. And he goes back out of the lineup. And, it's just really hard to, find a rotation and, find guys that are comfortable playing with each other when guys keep going in and out of the lineup. And the fact that they're still 7-2, tied for first in the league, despite all of that, I think is very, very promising for them.
Yeah, you got 5, I think, clear front runners in the conference right now, as far as in that race till maybe the end. We'll see if any of them drop out. But 4 teams with 2 losses, and then maybe the best team in Purdue sitting there with 3. And 3 of those teams in that race were in action on Thursday night. I thought, just by nature of how the season's gone, that one of them would maybe lose. Are all on the road. The favorite teams are all on the road, but they all came away with wins and kind of held serve at the top of the conference. So, my question to you is, with Wisconsin being one of those teams, and a team I feel like we haven't talked that much about. Like, we talked about Johnny Davis, but as a whole, I don't think we've really talked about the Badgers enough, because it was so unexpected how they've performed this year. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. The culture is set in, but just with kind of the turbulence that we saw the last couple of years, 2 years ago they won the Big Ten, but last year things seemed rocky, right? With all those veterans and the locker room drama, and Greg Gard is held together and then some. So shout out to him. And I just want to, dedicate a little time to talk Badgers and get your opinion on if you think this team has staying power through the rest of the conference race, if you think Johnny Davis is going to keep up, this player of the year clip. He struggled a little bit at Nebraska. It's going to happen, obviously, but just want to get your overall thoughts on the Badgers and how you see the rest of the season kind of playing out with them. A really nice story in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for Johnny Davis is just making sure he has guys around him that can score to take the pressure off of him. We saw in the Michigan State loss, when Tyler Wall was out, that Brad Davison was really the only guy that could help him out. And Michigan State pretty much played, 4 or 5 different guys on him and tried to, make things hard for him, wear him down. And it certainly worked. Nebraska game, he didn't play as well, but Brad Davison stepped up with 21, and Chucky Hepburn and Crowell both had, double digits. Tyler Wall did come back. He didn't shoot it well, but he was still a presence with 10 rebounds. So I think they just have to find like 3rd and 4th scorers consistently to stay in that race. And, we'll see if it always helps to have a star like Johnny Davis to do what he did in West Lafayette. They don't win that game without him going crazy in the second half. And so whenever you have a guy like that, I think you can certainly stay in the race. There doesn't seem to be an elite team in this league. And so I don't see why they can't stay around.
Minnesota's pushing everybody. They pushed Ohio State to a degree Thursday night. They got Wisconsin this weekend. So, Wisconsin is not, they don't want to look ahead because they got a big week coming up. Within 7 days, I got Illinois and Michigan State. So our squads will be, fighting for that Big Ten lead and some huge games coming up. But if they can get past Minnesota, do you think a split is probably what they're looking for with those 2 games? They're at,
I believe so.
Both at Illinois and at Michigan State. So
yeah, and I hear like former players talk about it all the time, where it's that you want to just win your home games and then like split on the road as much as you can. And so I think in that situation, if you can go ahead and split the Illinois and Michigan State games, like you would take that and run. That's what Michigan State did. They were able to split Wisconsin and Illinois on the road. They had a chance to get both, but didn't do it. But at the same time, you'll take that split. Kind of makes up for the Northwestern loss. And I feel like every team that's in the discussion for winning it, you got to take care of home. You got to take care of the games against the teams that are, middle or bottom of the league. You got to win those and then find a way to split the games, away from home. Like you can't drop a game against a Nebraska or a Penn State or a Maryland right now, since they're down at this point, like find a way to win those type of games. And, that way you give yourself some wiggle room if you happen to lose, a game to one of the contenders for the league.
Before moving down to the kind of next tier, I do want to mention Ohio State. And if they end up winning the conference, I might blame Andy Katz because I think he pissed EJ Liddell off this week. Did you see that list? He had a list of like player of the year contenders, and there was 6 or 7 dudes, and Liddell was not named even in the honorable mention. And so Liddell quote tweeted it and said, "All right, bet," or something like that. So I don't think Andy catches one once in a while with these takes because he's brave enough to put takes and rankings and tiers out in multitudes every week. So once in a while, a player's going to take notice and maybe get some motivation. And Liddell popped off on Thursday night, so maybe that's why.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he was a monster against Minnesota. I believe he was the third Big Ten player since 2010 to have 20 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists in a conference game, joining Ethan Happ and Caleb Swanigan, pretty good names there. And just the way Ohio State just beat up Minnesota on the glass. I mean, they were plus 26 on the glass. And so I know that was tied for the second highest in any Big Ten game this year. The way that their front court plays with Liddell and Zed Key and Kyle Young, like they're going to be in every game because they're rugged, they defend, they're going to always hit the glass. So they just have to get production from the guards to help Liddell out. And if they do that, Liddell's going to put up his numbers, and that, will certainly put him in the race and keep him there for the rest of the year.
Can you imagine if Liddell had stayed home and went to Illinois?
Oh man,
it's the missing piece, right? Like the Illinois 4 spot is a big question mark, and Liddell is like a pro high level 4.
Yeah, if he's starting over Granderson, and I like Granderson a lot, but like if he's starting over Granderson and Granderson is more like a 6-7 man, like Illinois is a top 5 team, top 3 team probably, and maybe even a favorite to win the whole thing.
Well, I remember he's boys with one of the guys on the Illinois football team, I think Keith Randolph. So like he was at the spring game. He was at the Illinois spring game and some other things on campus. Wow. And people were just like, oh, is he visiting? And I think Liddell's dad shot it down like in the spring or summer and squashed that real quick. But I just remember that drama kind of unfolding, especially with, transfer rules these days and anything goes. All right. So moving down kind of that next tier, Indiana is like, I think the clear next team so far. They handled Penn State. And I think that's like a game that, in the Archie days might have been a slugfest, right? Like it's hard to take just one game, but when I just see, I didn't get to watch it, but when I see final scores like that, I'm like, I think the Archie era, Indiana was winning those games like 54-51. You know what I mean?
No, that's fair. And it's weird because Indiana, Penn State seem to always play close games.
Right.
And so like I remember like crazy overtime games in Bloomington, crazy comebacks in that series. They just went up to State College earlier this year and lost and only scored 58 points. That was not the case at all on Wednesday night. I mean, Indiana jumped out. They were up near 30, I think over 30 in the first half. Only won by 17, but they certainly took care of business. I'm going to push back on you in terms of them clearly being in that next tier because I got to put Michigan in there. We saw Michigan go into Bloomington and completely dominate that game. They won by 18. They've owned the Hoosiers. They've won by double digits there, like 3 of the last 4 times they played. And they're playing really, really well right now. I know kind of going into the COVID shutdown, they were trying to find some things. The offense wasn't playing well. The defense wasn't playing well. But these last 3 games that they've won to kind of get themselves back in tournament picture, Caleb Houston's played well. Devontae Jones has kind of stabilized things at the point. The defense has been much better. They're shooting the 3 well. Like they're getting contributions from Terrence Williams and Frankie Collins. Eli Brooks, obviously being the vet that he is, hit some big shots. So Michigan's playing really well right now. And I think they're the team. If we talk about the Big 5 right now as the contenders, they win that game in East Lansing on Saturday, you might have to open it up for a 16.
Yep. I think them and Indiana are solidly in that second tier. I don't think anyone's really with them. Maybe Iowa as well, but I think it goes Indiana, Michigan, despite Michigan handling business. I think Indiana's body of work, but that can easily, 2 weeks from now, flip with the way Michigan's playing, like you said. So despite this episode dropping after Michigan State, people will know the result. I want to get, maybe a prediction from you here, or at least a sense of how you're feeling, so people can kind of, gauge if you were on the nose with it. So are you nervous? How are you feeling? Who do you think escapes with this one? It's at the Brez, right? So you guys got the home court in the zone and everyone juiced up on a weekend.
Yeah, it's at the Brez, so I certainly think that helps. I know it's a big weekend on campus, and we'll see. It might be the only meeting. We'll see if that Michigan game gets rescheduled in Ann Arbor. It still hasn't yet. We know Michigan, Purdue has been rescheduled, so we'll see if the other one does. I'm going to go Michigan State in a close one. I think the problem with Michigan State right now is you don't know which team's going to show up. I think the effort has been much better since the Northwestern loss. I thought they played hard against Wisconsin and Illinois. They didn't necessarily play well or as smart against Illinois compared to the Wisconsin game, but I think the effort was there. I think Michigan State wins a game like a 68-62, 68-63 type of game where it's nip and tuck most of the way. And Michigan State does just enough in the end to win it.
Do you think Michigan can pop Purdue one of these times? They got them twice in 3 games. It's a tight window. And between that, Purdue and Illinois square off. So you got those teams all beating up on each other in 3-game windows. You think Michigan gets one against Purdue, or is it too much for too tall a task?
It's possible. Again, we've seen Purdue at their best, and then we've seen the Purdue that played at Rutgers and played at Indiana and didn't get it done.
Dude, the NC State game was brutal to watch. So I was at that one, and I just kind of slid into a seat behind. I talked to you about this game before with listening in on Painter, and it was just really entertaining. But they were in the mud for about 38 minutes and just kind of snapped out of it. I think Sasha Stefanovic kind of snapped them out of it that game. But that was one of those games where I'm like, they cannot afford this type of look during March or any sort of game with stakes. Cause and every team can have those games. It's not a big deal if it happens once in a while, or if you learn from it. But you just wonder if that type of funk is permanently in the rearview mirror for them.
I think you get Purdue away from Mackey, you get some uneven performances. As good as they look in Champaign, they didn't necessarily look so great in Piscataway, in State College, in Bloomington. And I know they won the game at Penn State, but that came all the way down to the wire. Obviously lost the game at Rutgers in Indiana. So I think if they play their best, which I'd say for about 30 minutes in Iowa City they did, but if that happens, then they should win both of those games. But I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan took the fight to them and Purdue, found a way to lose that game. It wouldn't shock me at all.
All right, before wrapping up, H, what is the team at the bottom that we haven't talked about yet? That it's the old cliche, right? You don't want to play them right now, or don't want to play them with anything on the line. Could be Maryland, because I think they kind of woke up in the last week and a half or so. Maryland is also talented, right? I feel like those seasons, especially with the interim coach, can skid and slide off the rails a little bit, but it seems like they've, steadied that wobble a little bit. Penn State has had some good wins, got smoked at Indiana, like we talked about. Minnesota's the feel-good story and got a great coach, it looks like. Northwestern's been pesky. Probably should have beat Michigan the other day, beat Michigan State. And then I don't think Nebraska's going to lose every game. I think they'll get a couple. They got talent on that team. They've pushed some teams, but they've not been able to put together a full performance yet. So which team you got that is, maybe the most worrisome if you're a team going in on a Tuesday and are in the Big Ten title race and might get popped by one of these bottom half teams?
I would go with Maryland out of that group, just the way they've been playing recently. I think once they lost to Michigan, it looked really bad. We're never in that game, lost by about 20. They fell to 1-6, and you're like, man, is this thing going to go completely off the rails? And then, they battle against Illinois, kind of run away from them at the end and win that game. And then they go to the rack and win pretty convincingly at a place where a lot of teams are going to lose. We mentioned that Purdue lost up there, Iowa lost up there, and it seemed like Rutgers was kind of finding something, and Maryland went up there and controlled that game. I think when you have a backcourt like Eric Ayala and Fats Russell, those are 2 talented guys, and when they both get going at the same time, they can make things really, really hard for people. And, just the way that they can switch everything, Dante Scott and Hakeem Hart, those guys are playing well. Julian Reese is playing well. And so I think Maryland, of those teams that were struggling early, they got a chance to knock some teams off at home if people don't bring it.
Isn't it wild that Danny Manning's a Big Ten head coach?
It is.
I just kind of forget that
wild to me.
But it's Danny Manning seems like a nice guy too. I always like hearing him talk. And that same day that Purdue escape at NC State, Maryland beat Florida, and I think Danny Manning had a nice like emotional interview, and that was kind of when I became a fan.
Yeah, I think that was his first win as a as head coach. I think he took over like right after the Northwestern loss at home, and you're like, oh man, like you wonder how this is going to work out. And then, like you said, they come back and beat Florida, a week later, and you kind of see that the guys have bought in, and you can really see that they bought in now. Like again, when you lose the way they lost at Michigan, and the game before that, like you lose at home to Rutgers and kind of give it away in the second half, you're wondering if it's going to go off the rails. But he's got those guys playing well. They've responded these last 2 games. They get Indiana at home this weekend. They got a chance to maybe get a streak going. They get Michigan State at home after that too. Depending on what Michigan State team shows up, that could be a problem. I know the Spartans lost to them twice a year ago. So it'll be curious to see what the Terps look like and see if they could put some things together to try to get back in the tournament picture.
All right, big weekend of basketball. They're all big from here on out. Another CBS game. I think it's the Ohio State Purdue game. That'll be fun. I should know this, but like, do we get a CBS game every weekend? Like once kind of end of January, or is it just most weekends? I know we got to deal with them, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think now that we're pretty much into the thick of hoops and kind of out of football, you're going to see a lot more Big Ten Saturday, Sunday type of games. And it's usually going to be the usual suspects, the Michigan, Illinois, Purdue, Michigan State, Ohio State.
Stop you there. Illinois hasn't had one for many years until this year. I circled that in the calendar. I can't remember which one it is. It might be Michigan at the end of February. But regardless, they have one. And I know when the schedule came out, people were excited on Illinois Twitter.
Right. I just mean in terms of like they usually try to get the contenders because they don't have as many games as like Fox or ESPN or BTN. So it'll usually be like games against, the top 7, playing against each other. And obviously the Illini being one of the favorites, they're going to be on there for sure.
Yep. Get Bill Rafter in their little Minutemen. So
love it.
Love it. All right, H. Good stuff. Talk again soon, I'm sure. Thanks for cramming a couple into a week span here. And
of course.
Yeah, we will talk soon enough, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks to Harold and Nate once again for joining the show. Had a lot of fun talking to both of them. A rare weekend episode here on the pod. Had to get this in before the end of the month and wanted to continue to keep up the momentum with a lot of games going on and a lot of things to talk about when it comes to Big Ten basketball. So thank you to everyone for listening. Quick reminder, if you've not done so already, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and then we're also on YouTube, so you can see these interviews in their entirety and subscribe to the Big Ten Network YouTube channel. We have a playlist on that YouTube channel called, you guessed it, Take 10 Podcasts. So find us there. And big shout out to the person who puts the podcast there, Julie Bronder, stitches the show together and gets it where it needs to be. So thanks to her. And thanks to everyone once again for listening. A lot of fun coming up. My favorite time of year is coming up, March Madness. One more month to go, and we'll talk about it. CBS says the road to the Final Four. Don't sue me, CBS. Just borrowing the term. So we'll talk about the road to the Final Four, road to Indy for the Big Ten Tournament, and we'll be back soon with another Take 10 podcast. So stay tuned.